saying was about sets. So basically, set is only a collection. It will consist of a few elements, which can be like in our case, it will be integers or real numbers, rational numbers. So all of these are just elements, and they can be of any type. So basically, it depends upon our need. Like we need a set which will contain all the elements which are representing the names of some students. So in that case, it will be a set of those students. Okay. I don't know
Yeah,
why
go.
am I not able to
Yeah,
listen to anybody else. Is this okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you are
You all
audible.
are able to listen, na?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then it's okay. Second thing I would like to say is there are some basic operations with sets like union of set, intersection of set. So I hope you all know union of set is just like it is an operation which returns a bigger set in which all the elements which are present in the first set and all the elements which are present in the second set and anything which is in intersection of the set means which are common to both, all of them form a bigger set. This is called the union of the two sets. Okay.
right.
And intersection of the set is of two sets is all the elements which lie common to both the sets. Okay. So now let's proceed. Okay, one more thing is the cardinality. So basically, whenever we have finite sets, means such sets in which we know the total number of things, or there is a limitation between in the number of elements that can be there, or in the range in which the elements can exist. In that case, the cardinality means the size of the that complete set. And
Yeah.
in case we have an infinite set means which is which can expand to any extent, minus infinity plus infinity, or some
Mm-hmm.
kind of range, then in that case we have a range. We have an interval which
Mm-hmm.
specifies the lower limit and the upper limit of that set. We cannot say that this set consists of 100 elements or 500 elements because it is non-finite. Okay.
Hmm.
So I think we are good to go now.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So let's start with the first question. So the first question says, given below is a Venn diagram for sets. Oh, okay. By the way, everybody, make sure that you are watching Abhinav's stream. The question is there. Given below is a Venn diagram for sets of students who take maths, physics, and statistics. Which of the options is or are correct? And the notation here says a very important thing, that is P backslash Q indicates the set of elements in P which are not in Q. That
Yeah.
means whenever we see one set like say P and then a backslash and then another set like Q, we will understand that this indicates that all the elements which are present in P but not in Q. Remember, all the elements present in P but not in Q. So this is what we call the set difference. This is another operation like union and intersection.
Okay.
Okay. So we have to tell which of the following options are correct here. So first of all, we will see let me see if everybody is comfortable with these sections. So the first section, like first of all, let us see in the Venn diagram we have sets maths, physics, and statistics.
Mm-hmm.
So these are represented by these huge circles that you can see. Three
Yeah.
circles, they represent maths, physics, and statistics.
Yeah.
Region A is only those students who have taken maths. Only those students who have taken maths.
Mm-hmm.
Region B is only those who have taken physics. And region C is only those who have taken statistics. Okay.
Mm.
D is the intersection of A and B, but not C. I mean,
Yeah.
the intersection of maths and physics, but not statistics.
Yeah.
Only maths and physics students, but both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
E is only physics and statistics, but not maths. And F is only maths and statistics both, but not physics.
Not physics, right?
And G is all the three subjects.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in this case, now that we understand what each section represents, let's see which of the statements is correct. D is the set of students who take both maths and statistics. But no, we have just seen D is the set of students who have taken both maths and physics.
Physics.
So first option is wrong.
Okay.
Second option here is this U symbol represents union. So we are going to perform union operation. So D union E union F union G is the set of all students who take at least two subjects. That
Yeah,
means can be 2 subjects, can be 3 subjects, but not
Yeah.
1.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, what we see is the region D. Yes, it represents
No.
students who have taken both maths and physics. So yes, 2 subjects.
Yeah.
Region E. Yes, 2 subjects again, physics and statistics. F, again 2 subjects, maths and statistics. And G, which is of 3 subjects,
3
which is
subjects.
all the 3 subjects. Yes.
Right.
So union means a set which will comprise of all these regions D,
Mhm.
E, F, and G. So yes, this is the set of all students who have taken at least 2 subjects.
Yeah, like we
The next
add them up, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So E is a subset of the set of the students who have not taken maths. Let's see E. Now listen, here it is not written E is the subset of only those students who have not taken maths. Okay.
Mhm.
So means do not think that here it is written have not taken maths has to do something with physics or statistics. No. The only
Mhm.
information we have been given is have not taken maths. So in this case, is E lying outside the maths circle? Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, we see E is outside the maths circle. So that means
Yeah.
it's not comprising any student taken maths who have taken maths. So yes, E is a subset of the set of students who have not taken maths.
Hmm.
The next option is maths \D. That means the whole set of maths and the set difference of with D,
Yeah.
which means all the students who are in the set maths but not in D region. Okay.
Right. Right.
So that has to
It's
be
F and
means
G.
all the yes, obviously all the students who are in maths will be A, F, and G, but
Mhm.
not in D as it is written maths \.
Mhm.
So it says is the set of all students who have taken only maths. Nope.
Nope.
We see F
Consider
and
G
G.
also.
F and G they comprise of statistics and physics also. So yes, this is wrong. So we will not take it.
Yeah. Right.
And finally, the last option is physics \, in brackets D union G union E. So first of all, we will solve the brackets. That means we will take the union of D, G, and E. So D, G, and E is the set. Means the union of these sets is the set which has like those students who have taken only maths and physics, all the
Mhm.
subjects,
Mhm.
or
And
physics and
physics and
statistics only.
statistics, right?
Yes. So if we subtract this set from physics, that means if we eliminate all the elements which occurs in D union G union E from
We'll
physics,
get B.
then we will get the students who have taken only physics. This is what the option says. And yes, we
Yeah.
see it is because we are only left
Yeah.
with B and B region is only
Yeah.
for
Right.
physics. So yes, this option is
Okay.
correct. So if anybody has any doubt can ask. I am proceeding to the second question. Let A be the set of natural numbers less than 6 and whose greatest common divisor with 6 is 1. Okay, so first part of this question says let A be the set of all natural numbers less than 6.
Right.
So which are the natural numbers less than 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Hmm.
Okay, remember, I am not taking 0 here because 0 is a special case of natural numbers in which the question has to mention that yes, including 0.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So in this case, I'll take, and after all, 0 will not be useful here. So anyways, whose greatest common divisor with 6 is 1.
Mhm.
That means the HCF of those numbers with 6 is 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody knows what is highest common factor.
Yeah.
So let me give a brief summary. Highest common factor is nothing but a factor which is common to both the numbers upon which we are performing that HCF operation, and it has to be the highest of such. So the highest common factor of 4 and 6
Hmm.
is
2.
2,
Yeah.
because 2 is such a factor which occurs in both 4 and 6,
Mhm.
and it is the highest of such kind. We cannot take 3 or 4. Okay.
Mm.
So anyways, we have to find those numbers with which 6 HCF is 1. So let's see. First of all, we will take 1. 1
Mm.
and 6. What is their HCF? It is 1. So yes, 1 will be counted.
Yeah.
Then 2. 2 and 6, no. 2 and 6 HCF is 2, so we will skip it. Same for 3 and 6, HCF is 3. We will skip it.
Yeah.
4 and 6, it is 2. Again, we will skip it. 5 and
Mm.
6, yes, it is 1 again. So
Mm.
we'll take 5 also. And 6 we will not count only. So let's proceed to the second part of the question. Now this was our A, 1 comma 5. Then
Yeah.
it says let B be the set of divisors of 6. Now what are divisors? Which divide 6 completely. Means 6 is divisible by those numbers completely. No remainder is left after division. So in that case, what we have, if we divide 6 by 1, what remainder do we get? Nothing. So yes, 1 will be in set B.
Okay.
If we divide 6 by 2, what we will get remainder? 0. Again 2.
2 will be there.
3 will also be there. 4 will not be there. We will get some remainder.
Yeah.
5,
Will
if we
not be
divide 5, again there will be a remainder. And 6, yes. So in the second set, which is B, we have 1, 2, 3, and 6.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm doing wrong, then anybody can tell me. What are the cardinalities of A, B, A union B, and A intersection B? So means we have to find the number of elements in A, B, A union B, and A intersection B, and we can do that because all of them are finite. So A was our 1, 5 as we just did. So it will be 2. Okay. So in the first operation, means in the first part of solving of this question, we eliminate 2 options. We have just eliminated first 2 options because
Yeah.
in each of them the first
They
one
say
is
one.
1, but we
Yeah.
just found that it has to be 2. So
Yeah.
so the only options left are last 2. Then the next one is B. So in this thing, I am not only solving the question, I'll also tell you how to make these MCQs easier. So in this thing, I would suggest don't calculate that of B. And why
Yeah.
I'm
We'll
saying
just
that,
see what is the
see, you have
difference.
already eliminated 2 of the first 2 options, right? And the options we are yes, and the options which we are remaining with both have 4 as the second answer. So even if we find the answer of B, there won't be any use. So let's continue to something which has different things, like the third one, which is 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Shantanu, you're audible.
Oh, I thought somebody asked something. Anyways,
Maybe.
so okay. So A union B. What will be A union B? All the elements which are there in A also, which are there in B also, and which are there in their intersection, means common to both also. So A union B here in this case is 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
6.
So how
Yeah.
many elements do we have?
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 elements, and that's it. Only the third option remains because the last option has 6 there. So yes, only third option is correct.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's proceed to the third question. Let A be the set of all even natural numbers including 0. See, here it is written including 0 in case of natural numbers.
Okay.
B be the set of all odd natural numbers. C be the set of all natural numbers which divide 100, and D be the set of all prime numbers less than 100. So let us construct our sets first. We know A is the set of all even natural numbers. So it's clear to everybody, even numbers is known by everybody. B is the set of all odd natural numbers. Okay, so one conclusion which we can draw here is that A and B can never occur together.
Yeah.
Neither they can have any intersection, nor any one of those sets can lie inside the second set, right? Because even natural numbers and odd natural numbers are completely different.
Right.
Okay. The C set is be the set of all natural numbers which divide 100, means all the factors of 100. Okay, and here it is not written prime factors, so you have to make sure that you don't commit that mistake. So let us do that in means step by step. So first of all, we will take all natural numbers, the lowest natural number, and we will proceed to the highest natural number, which can be the factor of 100 factor. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, it is 1. So 1 into 1 multiplied by what gives 100? 100. So 1 and 100 both. Then we proceed to 2. 2 multiplied by 50. So 2 and 50 both will be in C.
Right.
Then 3. No. 3 does not divide 100. 4. So 4 and 25 both.
And 25.
Then 5 and 20 both. And
Yeah.
finally 6, 7, 8, 9. None of them divide 100. Only we have is 10.
10 and 10.
Okay.
Yeah, 10. We can't
Yes.
repeat, right? Okay.
Exactly. So now we have constructed the set C, and finally we have the set D, which is all prime numbers less than 100. So all the prime numbers which are less than 100, I won't be writing here because that is not even required.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we don't require to construct the complete set. You will realize why. And read this note. A region represented in a Venn diagram could be empty. Okay, so this is a very important note because many of you might even get confused by seeing the sets. That okay, there is something missing in each of these diagrams. Okay, so that has been cleared by this note. This note says a region represented in a Venn diagram could be empty. That means that out of all the observations we can draw from the sets A, B, C, and D, not each one of that has been represented in any of the diagram. It is not necessary that all the drawings have been done in any of them. We have to only find all those such Venn diagrams which are correct. Means whatever is shown in that is correct. If something has not been shown, that does not matter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in case A and B don't need to occur together, we drew that conclusion earlier. So it does not mean that if any Venn diagram does not say that, means if any Venn diagram does not show A and B, that does not mean that that Venn diagram is completely wrong. Okay. So let us see the first option. We see A completely isolated from B. Yes, obviously A and B cannot be together, as we have just seen, and D inside B. But note one thing, D be the set of all prime numbers less than 100. And you should remember that the first prime number is 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And which is an even number. So that means that,
That must be
this
in A.
D, yes, so D has to have some link with A also because A has all the even natural numbers. So that means option 1 is wrong.
Okay.
Okay, option 2. Here we see C has intersection with both A and B. Okay, so C was the set of all natural numbers which divide 100. So can there be link between A and B both with C? Yes, it can be.
Yeah.
And why am I saying so? Because when we constructed C, we saw there is 1 also, 5 also, and there are even numbers like 2 and 4 also. So that means C has such all the elements which occur in means which are even also and odd also. So yes, there has to be an intersection between A and B with it. And A and B have been shown isolated in option 2. Means A and B are not sharing any intersection together, as you can see. And D has not been shown, so we will not consider that. We have to only see A, B, and C. So as of now, A, B, and C have been represented correctly. So yes, option 2 goes well. It is correct. Option 3, C and D share some intersection. They have some intersection. And can it be? Yes. We have seen in D we have prime numbers less than 100. And yes, in the set C, which are the factors of 100, it also have some prime numbers like 2, 5. So yes, C and D definitely have some intersection.
Yeah.
A and B have not been shown. No problem. That's not our matter. So C and D, yes, this option goes correct.
Okay.
And finally, we have A, C, and D. Okay.
Yeah.
Now why this option should not be correct is a simple reason that C and D have intersection here. It is shown. Okay, great. A and C also have intersection. Okay, great. But don't you think there should be an intersection between A and D also?
Yeah. There should be.
But that has not been shown here. So it has to be wrong. Okay, done. Let's proceed to the next question. Let A be the set of natural numbers which are multiples of 5, strictly less than 100. Strictly less means we will not include 5. All those natural numbers less than 100, also multiples of 5 will be considered. Okay. So in this case, we can generate, I think, 19 such numbers. So just now that would not matter. Okay. Then we have B be the set of natural numbers which divide 100. Okay, again, that set, our same set as in previous question.
Yeah.
Which was C in the previous question.
Yeah.
All those numbers which are factors of 100. Simple. Yes. So what are the cardinalities of B backslash A? That means set difference of B and A. A intersection B and B. Okay. So the simple thing I'll do here is, before checking the cardinality of B intersection, B backslash A, I'll check that of B because that is simple. So we can start with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So B. And in the last question, we just found that it was C, right? We found C to be the same set. So what was the cardinality of C? It was 9 there because we had 9 elements in C. 1, 100, 2, 50, 4, 25, 5, 20, and 10. 9. That means the last element in each option should be 9.
Yeah.
But we have only one such option here.
Yeah.
Right? We have only one such option amongst all the 4, in which the cardinality of B has been shown as 9.
Yeah.
Right? So this option is the only correct one. So we don't even have to look for A intersection B and B backslash A.
Yeah, right.
So we can proceed. Suppose the cardinality of set A is 2 and the cardinality of set B is 3. Okay, so in this case, we have some hypothetical sets. We have no real sets. We have to only consider their cardinalities, number of elements in them. A has 2 elements in it. B has 3. What are the cardinalities of the Cartesian product? Cartesian product means, if everybody is aware of, then it's good. Let me just give a brief review. Whenever we perform the operation, a set A multiplied by sign, a set B, then what we get is another set in which we don't have sole elements, not like 5 or 10. We have pairs. Okay, we call them ordered pairs.
Right.
Okay, so let's say A is a set 1, 2. Okay, is everybody audible? I mean, am I audible to everybody?
Yeah, you are audible.
So, and B set, let's say set B has, in this case, we are saying, okay, cardinality of set B is 3. So let's say 3, 4, and 5. 3 elements. Okay. So what will be A into B? A into B is simply we will take one element from A and pair it with another element of B. Okay, so we have to perform, make all such pairs possible. So first of all, let me say I take 1 from the set A. So 1, 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Will be one element of A into B. Then 1, 4 and 1, 5. Okay. Then since the first element has been done, we will proceed to the second element, that is 2 in the set A. So it will be 2, 3, 2, 4 and 2, 5.
Okay.
Remember these 2, 4, 2, 5, these are all single elements of the Cartesian product. One elements each. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do we get is we see we had two elements in A, 3 elements in B, and we have 6 elements in A into B.
Right.
So what do we understand from this? We understand that whenever we will construct Cartesian product, it will have means its cardinality will be the product of the cardinalities of the sets which constructed that Cartesian product.
Right.
Okay, so we got this. Now the thing which they are saying is, what are the cardinalities of the Cartesian product A into B and the power set of A into B? Okay, so power set of A into B is nothing but a set of all the subsets of A into B. Are you getting that? Subsets means we can take some selective elements from A into B, or no element at all, or all the elements at once, to construct different sets, and these all will be called the subsets of A into B. For example, let me take an example of only A, means only a single set, no Cartesian product, so that you don't get confused. If we have A, we say it has 1, 2, means these two elements. Then we can say the subsets of A will be phi, means no element. Remember, phi is a Greek alphabet and it represents no element. Okay, empty element, empty set. The second subset that we can make is 1 alone. Okay.
Yeah.
The third element which we can make is 2 alone. And the last subset which we can make is 1, 2, the complete set itself. So what do we see? We had a set 1, 2, means which had 2 elements, and we ended up with making 4 subsets. Okay, so that means the cardinality of the power set of A will be 4. right?
Right.
And if you experiment more with different cardinality sizes of different sets, then you will observe that the cardinality of the power set of any set is the square of the cardinality of that set. Wait, sorry, not square, it is 2 raised to the power of the cardinality of that set, right?
Okay. Right.
So in this case, we have to find the power set of A into B. That means we have to take 2 raised to the power the cardinality of A into B. Okay.
Yeah.
So A into B has a cardinality 6, we just saw. And 2 raised to the power 6 will be 2 into 2, 4 into 2, 8 into 2, 16 into 2, 32 into 2, 64.
Right.
So we have 6 and 64 to be the right answer, and that is option number 3rd.
Right.
Let me proceed now. In a survey, it is found that in a particular locality, 64 houses buy English. Okay, so as we are doing this, I hope everybody has pen and paper. So let's note down NE. That means number of elements in E, which is all the means number of people who buy the English newspaper in a locality, equal to 64 as it is given. Okay, just write it, and then we will write NT
Right.
to be equal to 94, as there are 94 houses which buy Tamil newspapers.
Mhm.
And lastly, we see 26 houses buy both English and Tamil newspapers, both. And when this both comes during the operation intersection, so that means N of E intersection T will be equal to 26.
Okay.
Okay, now what they are saying is we have to find um, how many houses are there which buy only one language. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that means it has to be one and only one,
Yeah.
neither no newspaper at all nor two newspapers. It has to be only one. So there are different methods. We can go with the formula method in mathematics, but I would suggest you to use the visual method using Venn diagrams.
Okay.
So in that case, first of all, we will draw a rectangle. I hope everybody is means going on with me only, means having a pen and paper and doing this all by themselves as well.
Yes.
Okay. So now the region which is not intersection with the other set, let us first of all label them. Like in the English set, means which is not intersecting with the Tamil set, we will simply represent that set with say A. Okay.
Okay.
And the Tamil set in which there is no intersection with E, means the left over part which is only Tamil, we will represent it with B. Okay.
Okay.
Now we see that since 64 is nothing but A plus 26, right?
Right.
And
Yeah. 26 is the middle part, right?
yes, so B plus 26 will be 94. Okay.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we want to find only A plus only B, means no 26, right?
Hello.
So what we can do is,
I can't
this
hear
case-
this again.
hello, have I been disconnected again? Hello. I think I don't know why things are being disconnected and again I have a consistent. Yes, I think. Okay.
Yeah, Shantanu.
Okay, so we were in the set part. So I think we have already lost so much of time because of disconnect. So I'll simply continue. So basically, out of this 94 and 64, just subtract 26 from any one of them.
Right.
Okay, because if we simply add 94 and 64, then we see we will be adding this 26 one part, means intersection one part twice. Okay, but we don't want to do that. We only
Right.
want this 94 minus 26 plus 64 minus 26, means only the A region, only English, plus only the B region, only Tamil.
Yeah.
Okay, so 94 minus 26. If we do that, then we will get 68, right? And 64 minus 26. If we do that, then we will get 38. Please match with my answer, everybody. Is it correct or not? 38 and 68. And if we add it, means we are adding the only English part and only Tamil part, no intersection part. Then we get 38 plus 68 is 106. So 106 is the correct answer.
All right.
Okay. The next question is, which of the following numbers is or are irrational? Okay, so this will be a very simple question here.
Yeah.
Irrational numbers are those numbers which are simply which have means no limit in their decimal places. Means we can keep on writing unique digits again and again. Means they won't be even repeating. So we can write like pi. It is an irrational number because 3.1427 whatever it is. After that we can just keep continuing. And some properties of irrational numbers is that if you take the square root of any number which is not a perfect square, okay, so all the perfect squares like 4, 9, except them, if we take the square root of any number, any positive number, okay, we get an irrational number. Like square root of 3, it is an irrational number. Square root of 5, it is an irrational number. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, something you need to notice is that an irrational number added with a rational number, that is like 2 and root 3, if you add them together, you always get an irrational number. Irrational plus rational is always irrational. You can note it if you want. Irrational plus rational always gives irrational. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing, irrational multiplied by rational is also irrational. Irrational multiplied by rational is also irrational. Third thing, like I said, addition. You can say that similarly go on with subtraction also. So irrational plus or minus with rational is always irrational. Okay.
Yeah.
So these were some basic things, and now we can proceed with our question. So the first option is square root of 2 plus square root 3. Now this is like square root of an irrational number, because see, 2 is a rational, square root 3 is an irrational. Irrational plus rational is irrational. So again, square root of any irrational number is also irrational. So first option is correct. We will tick it. The second option is 2 plus square root 3 multiplied by 2 minus square root 3. And if you remember this identity, a plus b inside brackets multiplied by a minus b inside brackets is a squared minus b squared. Right?
Right.
So if we perform this on this option, we get 2 square, which is 4, minus root 3 ka square, which is 3. 4 minus 3 is 1, which is rational. So option 2 is not correct. Let's go on to the next option. Option number 3. 2 plus square root 3 plus 2 minus square root 3. And by commutative law, you can simply eliminate these square root 3's, because plus square root 3 and minus square root 3. Right?
Yeah.
So all
So
that we are remaining with.
Irrational.
Yes, because we are remaining with only 4.
4.
And the last option is again irrational plus irrational. So remember, irrational plus irrational is also irrational, which is 2 square root 3 plus 3 square root 2.
Right.
On both sides we have irrationals, root 3 and root 2. So it is again irrational. So this option is also correct. So option 1 and 4 are correct for 7th question. Let's move to the next one. Which of the following is true for R given below? Okay, so now from sets we have moved on to relations.
Relations,
Okay.
right.
So in relations, relations are sets which consist of ordered pairs A, B, such that A and B satisfy some given condition. Like in this case, it is A, B, where both A and B are even, non-zero integers. Okay, A and B are even non-zero integers. Then we can say they are like -2, -4, -6, and in the positive side 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and A upon B is an integer.
Okay.
So we have to say which of the following are correct.
Yeah.
Now, is R a reflexive relation? Reflexive relations are nothing but those relations in which if I write the values of A and B both to be the same thing, like if I say 1 and 1, so I'll ask myself a question. Okay, under the given condition given in this relation, can I map 1 with 1? Means can I have 1, 1 as an element in this relation?
Mm-hmm.
Can I have 2, 2? Means can I have similar elements,
Yeah.
similar numbers as an element of this relation? And if the answer is yes for all the numbers which are possible for this relation, then yes, it is a reflexive relation. So let's see, R is a reflexive relation or not. So what is the condition is, we have to take A and B from the set of even non-zero integers. Like I said, -6, -4, -2, 2, 4, 6, 8, blah, 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 and so on.
Yeah.
So taking any two of these two, we have to start constructing elements and see if this is possible or not, that A upon B is an integer. So let's see if it is a reflexive relation or not. So first let me consider -2 and -2. Divide -2 by -2, you get 1. Divide 2 by 2, you get 1. Means any number you divide it by itself, you will always get 1, which is an integer. And yes, so it is a reflexive relation.
Yeah.
Now the second is symmetric relation or not. For symmetric relation, you have to see that if A comma B, means if A and B exist as an element inside this relation, then B comma A should also exist always.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
even if there is even a single condition in which this is not followed, then it won't be a symmetric relation. Okay,
Okay.
so let's see. Let me take any two elements like 2 and -2.
Okay.
So if I divide 2 upon -2, I get -1.
Mm-hmm.
If I divide -2 upon 2, I get -1.
Minus
And -1 and -1 both are integers. So yes, it might be a symmetric relation. But wait, let us test for any such condition which does not follow this. Like 2 and say 4. Yeah, we got it. 2 upon 4.
Is
Is it an integer? No.
Nope.
Anyways, what we will do is we cannot start with 2 upon 4. We should start with 4 upon 2. See, 4 upon 2, yes, it is an integer,
It is
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But 2 upon 4, it is not. So simply, this cannot be a symmetric relation because one pair of numbers, only one is required. One pair of such numbers is to be found, which simply disproves the that type of relation.
Symmetric
And then yes, yeah. So it is not symmetric. So second option is incorrect. The third option is transitive relation. Okay, so transitive relation can be confusing sometimes. So basically what we do is we choose any two numbers, say A and B. Okay, so we test if A and B lie in this relation or not. Means in this case, is A upon B an integer? Okay, if it is, okay, let's proceed to the next thing to test transitivity. The next thing which we would see is we would take the second number from the previous element, which is B. Okay, A comma B tha pehle. Then we take B from it, take out B from it, and consider another number which can be the same as A or B. Okay, it does not have to be different only. So we will take B comma C. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if A comma B lies in this relation, it is there in this relation. And if B comma C is also in this relation, and if for every such pairs A comma C is also in this relation, then only it will be transitive. That means, let's say I have a number, say 8. Okay, let's say A equals 8. Everybody consider A equals to 8. B equals to 4, and C
Okay.
equals to 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's test A upon B, which is 8 upon 4. It is 2. It is an integer. Yes.
Mhm.
A comma B is in the relation. Okay. A comma B done. B comma C, 4 upon 2. Is it in this relation? Yes. 4 upon 2 is 2 again, which is an
Yeah.
integer. So obviously B comma C. Now remember, whenever we are testing this, we have to make sure that A comma B and B comma C both exist. We cannot simply say that okay, A comma B exists, but B comma C does not exist, so it is not transitive. We have to
Mhm.
see A comma B exists, B comma C exists, and if then A comma C also exists, then it is transitive, otherwise not. So in this case, A comma B and B comma C both exist in the relation R. So we will test for A comma C, that is 8 comma 2. Now let's say 8 upon 2. What is 8 upon 2? 4. Is 4 an integer? Yes. So yes, A comma C also lies in this relation. Now, when you study this complete relation, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. So if we study this whole relation, we will see that for every such A comma B and B comma C, A comma C has to exist. We always see this. Okay.
Yeah.
So then that means this is a transitive relation.
Mhm.
Done.
Okay.
And the last option, it is very simple. Is R an equivalence relation or not? So the a simple definition of equivalence relation is a relation which is all reflexive, symmetric, and transitive. Okay. But in this case, we saw that it is only reflexive and transitive, not symmetric. So no, this won't work. So this is not equivalence. Only first and third option are correct for 8th question.
Okay.
Let's proceed. Find the domain and range of the following real valued function, which is fx equals square root of 3 minus x. Okay, so basically, whenever you have a function, you are basically describing, say, a variable, any variable you can take y equals to f of x, where f is kind of a formula. Okay, you can say a formula, and x is the variable which we are going to use inside this formula. For example, let me say f is equal to, like, fx is equal to, say, x squared plus 2. Okay, so here I am using the variable. Hello, am
Yeah,
I
you are
audible?
audible. Yeah.
Okay, so x squared is x squared plus 2. This is our function. X is the variable, and for whenever I put any value into x, whatever value I am getting by this function x squared plus 2, it will be y. So this is the simple notion of a function. Okay, so and there are some conditions for a relation to be a function. I hope you have studied that, and since we have not got so much time, so I won't be explaining it here.
Yeah.
Anyways, domain and range of any real valued function is simply, domain is what, from where we can pick the values of x. Means from where if I pick any value, that set from where I can pick a value for x, and that function is, I can say that function is stable. Yes, you can understand it like stable. Means that function exists actually. Like if I say the same function x squared plus 2. So within the real number set, I see that x squared can be like x can be any value, any real numbered value, except infinite and minus infinite. We don't consider it. It is just a kind of unknown range. So we will consider any number between minus infinity and infinity, which is a real number. And if we put it as the value of x, yes, y exists. Means at least y is a real number. So in this case, domain would be everything. But in our case, function is root of 3 minus x, right? So square root of 3 minus x, that means we have to consider the domain for this. Okay, now which are the conditions in which the function does not exist? There can be many conditions. First condition is that if it is a real valued function, there should not be any negative number inside the square root, right? Because if that happens, then that won't be a real number, it would be an imaginary number. Okay.
Right.
Second thing is not applicable for our function, but let me tell you, if there is a denominator, then that denominator should not be 0.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in our case, we don't need to check the denominator, we simply need to check 3 minus x. Okay, so which are the values for which 3 minus x will be a positive number or 0? because inside square root we can have only 0 or positive number, no negative number allowed. So we see when we take x equals to 2, it is 3 minus 2 1. Okay, let's decrease more. X equal to 3, 3 minus 3 is 0. Okay, so that means when x is 3, we have already attained the minimum value that we can achieve, because below that it is negative number and we don't want that. So we will say our set is, or I can say our domain is any number which is greater than or equal to 3. Okay, so x is greater than or equal to 3. Remember this. Okay, and if
Yeah.
the options bother you, don't worry. First of all, we have to find the range also, and only then we can find any such pair which satisfy both our conditions. As of now, we see x is greater than or equal to 3. Wait, did I say x is greater than or equal to 3? Sorry,
Yeah,
x is
it
less
should
than
be
or
less
equal
than.
to 3.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry, my bad. X is less than or equal to 3, because if x becomes greater than 3, even 3.00001, then also we'll get a negative number.
Negative
So we
number,
don't want.
and that would be imaginary.
Yes. So x is less than or equal to 3, correct? If whoever has listened greater than. Now range. Range is nothing but whatever values we put from the domain as x. So the values returned as y means the values returned by the function after solving the complete formula. Whatever values we get, we form a set out of all those values, and that is called the range. So if we say in our case domain is x is less than equal to 3, that means we have to pick values from this set, any value which is less than equal to 3, and whatever answer we will get from square root of 3 minus x, that will be the range. Okay,
Okay.
so let us see what we can do. When x is 3 means the lower limit. Okay, sorry, the maximum means highest limit.
Yeah,
X
the
is
highest
equal to
one.
3. What do we get? 3 minus x is 0.
Yeah.
That means the lowest possible number that we are getting here is 0.
Mhm.
0. Okay, written. Now let me check for say a higher number, or sorry, a lower number, because x is less than or equal to 3. Let me see even lower number. Let's say 1. Okay, 1 will work. So 3 minus 1 is 2.
2.
Okay, so again 2 is also available for us. 2 works for us, right?
Yeah.
So we keep on decreasing this value, keep on decreasing, and we see this minus infinity. We reach till minus infinity, but still we are keeping, we are just getting this positive numbers. Okay, like
Yeah.
if I say 3 minus 3 is 0, 3 minus 2 is 1, square of 1 is 1, 3 minus 1 is 2, square root of 2 is square root of 2. Then we get 3 minus 0, which is 3 square root of 3. 3 minus that 3 minus minus 1 means 3 plus 1, which is 4, which is square root of 4 means 2,
Yeah.
and so on. We just keep on continuing and we keep on getting larger numbers.
Mhm.
And when there will be x will be equal to not equal to, will approach, means it will be around minus infinity, very negative number, very large negative number.
Mhm.
Then we will start getting very large positive numbers.
Positive numbers. Yeah.
So that means our range should be something which will be greater than or equal to 0, right? So y will be greater than or equal to 0. Everyone
Mhm.
agrees? Okay, so let's see which option has that. Yes, I see. Wait, x is less than or equal to x. This, the third option.
Yeah.
Here we have the domain x is less than or equal to 3, and the range x is greater than or equal to 0, which is our required condition. That's it. Option 3 is correct for question number 9.
Mhm.
Now question number 10. Which of the following is or are true for the given function squared plus 2? Okay. Now here are more interesting things out there. We have to find whether or not the function is injective, surjective, or whatsoever. So basically, injective functions, surjective functions are like this. Take the domain. Let the domain of the function be, say, D. Okay, I have the domain as D. Okay,
Yeah.
and the codomain. Codomain means that set from which elements might be the answer. Means domain is where we pick the values of x, and
Mhm.
whatever we get the values of x is
Comes in
range.
codomain.
But
Yeah.
that range falls in codomain. Means
Codomain.
codomain is the largest set from where the values might be.
Mhm.
So we inject codomain. Okay, now what is an injective function? Injective, as the name suggests, inject. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
simply we are injecting the function into the codomain. So basically, an injective function is we also call it like 1-1 function. Okay, so 1-1 function means for every x in the domain. For example, if we have a domain 1, 2, and 3, and we want to construct a function out of this, then for every this number in the domain, we must have one and on one number in the codomain. Okay.
Okay.
For example, in our case, squared plus 2. So x squared plus 2, if it had to be injective, okay, I'm not saying it is injective, I'm saying it, if it had to be injective, then whatever value we would put for x, we would get a unique value for y, means a unique value out of this formula. So let's say if I put number a, then a squared plus 2, and if I put another number b squared plus 2, then it is guaranteed that a squared plus 2 and b squared plus 2 will be different, definitely different. In that case, it would be injective.
Okay.
So let's see if it is injective or not. X squared plus 2. Okay, so whenever let me give you a shorthand trick. Whenever you involve any square function, means a function in which there is x squared or
Mhm.
x raised to any even power, then it will simply, because if I take 2 square, what is 2 square? 4, right? And if at the same time if I take minus 2 ka whole square, it will also 4, right?
Mhm.
So that means if there were only x squared, that means it would definitely be not injective. We could have written directly that no, f is not injective, because we have two such x's for which the is same, and that is not to be that is not supposed to be.
Okay.
In our case, we have a plus 2. So let's see if we can meet a condition.
Mhm.
Let's say x equals to 0. No, x equal to 0 won't work. Let's say, okay, so basically let me give you a mathematical approach in which you won't have to test continuously. Okay, so remember this mathematical approach. You can write it in your notebooks. That would be very great. It will help you a lot. So first of all, what you have to do, you have to take two arbitrary variables, means like say a and b. Okay, so am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so a and b. First of all, put a inside this function. We get a squared plus 2. Then put b into this function. In place of x, we get b squared plus 2. Okay. Now, say a squared plus 2 equals to b squared plus 2. This is a simple test for injectivity. Means whether or not the function is injective. So we will say a squared plus 2 equals to b squared plus 2. We are just assuming this. Okay. Now let's solve it. 2 and 2 get cancelled on both sides. We are left with a squared equals to b squared.
Yeah.
So our motive is that for a function to be injective, uh, in this test, at last we should remain with a equal to b.
Hmm.
So are we remaining with that? No. Why? Because a squared equals to b squared. That means a can b plus minus b. Remember, because minus of b, minus ka whole squared is also a squared, and plus b ka whole squared is also a squared here in this case.
Mhm.
Okay, so that means we don't have a equals to b. Rather, we have a equals to plus b or minus b, and that is not what we want.
Mhm.
Okay, so that means it is not injective, because in our case we are getting a equals to plus minus b, which should not be. So the first option is correct. It says f is not injective. So then we have this, is surjective or not. So obviously only one of these options has to be correct. So let us do a test. And in this case, there is another test. I hope you have written the first test for injectivity in your notebooks, if you
Yeah.
don't know it already. So the second test is for surjectivity. In this thing, what we do is, first of all, we write the function. And in this case, we will not write fx equals to, we will write y equals to. So y equals to x
Six
plus 2.
plus 2.
Okay. Now we
Yeah.
have to obtain x out of this single standalone x. So what we will do is, x squared equals to y minus 2. So x equals to square root of y minus 2. In this
Yeah.
case, we don't need to take plus minus. Okay.
Mhm.
We can simply go with x equals to square root of y minus 2.
Yeah, yeah.
Now what we will do is, put this x back into the formula.
Mm-hmm.
Means we had fx equals to x squared plus 2. So the value of x which we have just obtained, square root of y minus 2, we'll just put it back. And if we obtain y, done. Our answer is correct. Means it is surjective. So let's put it square root of y minus 2 ka whole squared, because it is x squared, plus 2,
Yeah, right.
which is y minus 2 plus 2. Minus 2 and plus 2 get cancelled. We are remaining with y. So okay, another thing I want to say is in the last x equals to square root of y minus 2, you can say it is because you don't require to take plus minus. I was wrong at that time. I meant for non-square roots. Here we had square root already, so we should take plus minus of square root of y minus 2, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, that won't
That
affect.
would result in yeah.
So in this case, we have x squared plus 2, and we are remaining with anyhow we are remaining with plus or minus 2.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, plus or minus y.
Minus y. Yeah.
So, but that is not exactly y, and means we don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So it
That
is
should be
not
positive of y,
surjective.
right?
Yes, it is not surjective.
Mm-hmm.
That means this third option is correct. Second one is not.
Mhm.
And lastly, we have bijective. Bijective function is any function which is both injective as well as surjective.
Yeah.
But in
That
our
won't
case,
be
it is none of that. So it
Yeah,
has to be not bijective also. So we are
Mhm.
remaining with the first and third options correct for 10th question. Okay.
Right.
Now we have the next question. Yes. This one is interesting. Find the domain of the following real valued function, and we have a denominator as well.
Yeah.
So as I told you, we have to follow simple things, that inside the square root, we don't want negative numbers. No negative numbers allowed. So
Mhm.
x has to have such a value that whatever we perform inside the square root, we don't get any negative number inside. And
Yeah.
secondly, we have to make sure that the denominator does not become 0. It becomes negative, it becomes positive, whatsoever, no problem, but not 0.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see which conditions can be fulfilled here. I mean, what is required to fulfill those conditions?
Mhm.
If we see it is plus 2, that means x value cannot be less than minus 2,
Minus 2, right? Yeah.
because that means x has to be greater than or equal to minus 2, because if I put x equals to minus 2 plus 2 is 0, and if
Yeah.
I go even little lesser than this minus 2, I would get a negative number. So
Mhm.
that is not required. X is greater than or equal to minus 2. Okay, so before we proceed, first of all, we have to make sure we satisfy the second condition also, that is of the denominator.
Right.
Now, for which two numbers x will be equal to 9? Because x squared will be equal to 9, because x squared minus 9 should not be 0. Okay,
Mhm.
so that means x squared should not be equal to 9, and that means x should not be equal to minus 3 or 3.
Or 3. Yeah.
Okay, now these options might be tricky in this case. We would say, there is no such condition, x is not equal to minus 3 or 3. So first of all, let us study our condition. Let us club our both our conditions which we have got. So the first
Mhm.
thing which we have got is x is greater than or equal to minus 2, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is x is not equal to minus 3 and x is not equal to 3.
Yeah.
Now clubbing all these three conditions, we get is x is greater than equal to minus 2, and that already eliminates the possibility of minus 3, because minus 3 is less
right.
than minus 2.
Yeah.
So remove that, and the second condition we are remaining with is x is not equal to 3.
Yeah.
Now we will try to find this condition, and it is the first option only. X is greater than or equal to minus 2, and x is not equal to 3. So yes,
Yeah.
option 1 is correct.
All right.
Now, the 12th question is one of the most interesting ones, I guess, because I have seen many people having problems with this.
Mhm.
Even I had problem when I was solving, and I took around 30 minutes to do this. So basically what it says is, let S be the set of all the months of a year. Okay, the names of
Yeah.
the months: January, February, March, and till December. Now we have been given three relations on the basis of this set S, and which are these three sets? R1, sorry, sets not, it's relations. The first relation is R1, which says that from the set S we can pick any two names A and B, such that A and B have the same last four letters. Okay. So as an example, I can say January and February. You can see the last four letters are the same, right?
Yeah.
And there is another three
September,
such
November, and
months.
December.
Yes, exactly. September, November, and December, they also share the same last four letters.
Yeah.
R2 is A and B have the same number of days. That means either A and B both have 31 days or A and B both have 30 days, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And lastly, R3. Actually, these two conditions, these two questions, 12A and 12B, revolve around R3. So R3 says A, comma C. 2 months A, comma C, such that there exists some B. There exists another month, say B, for which we can say that A, comma B is in relation 1 and B, comma C is in relation 2.
Two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the things are made complicated here only.
Mm-hmm.
Means we want two such month names, A, comma C. So first of all, before proceeding to this question, I would say make two boxes in your notebook or whatsoever. It will be just for rough work. So make two boxes, and you can make them far from each other. Like, I don't want them to be together. So if once you do that, above one write A, and above the second one write C. Okay. And why I am saying so? Because between these two rectangles, we will have another rectangle which will consist of B, right?
Yeah.
So basically, our relation R3 has to have A and C, not B. Okay. So don't think that B has to be there. We have to have A, comma C, not A, comma B or A, comma C. B, comma C. We have to have A, comma C, but to satisfy the conditions of R3, we need need an element B also, which can be anything. So first of all, let me go with this example which has been given by them only. So basically, December and June, they are saying December and June both belong to R3. And why is that so? Because see, if I take A to be December, C to be June, then there can exist any month name, let's say September or even December. Okay, we can repeat the month names. Okay, so don't think that they cannot be repeated. December and B can also be December, so don't worry about that. But in this case, December won't work because it has 31 days. So anyways, let's see December, and if we take B to be September, so December is how many days? First of all, the last four letters. December has MBER. September also has MBER. Okay. So A, comma B exists in R1. Okay, done. But does B, comma C exist in R2? Let's see. B, comma C, that is September, comma June. September has how many days? 30. June has how many days? 30. That means yes, September, comma June exists in R2. So A, comma C, that is December and June exist in R3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So basically, first of all, you have to find a month which shares the same last four letters with the first element, that is A, and has the same number of days as in the second element, C.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the process, and we are being asked questions about this only. So first of all, we have to choose whether or not R3 is symmetric. Okay. So when would it be symmetric? If A, comma C would exist, if A, comma C would exist in R3, then C, comma A should also exist in R3. If that happens for every month, then yes, it would have been symmetric. But I see there we don't have any such condition, because see, there are some months in which if you put A, comma C together, so we can draw out one B from the set of the months, okay, which can share the same number of same last four letters as of A and same number of days as of C. But if we reverse the order, C, comma A, then that B, it is not necessary that B would have the same last four letters as that of C and the same number of days as that of A. So that means it is not necessary that if A, comma C exists, then C, comma A has to exist. So of course this won't be symmetric, at least. So the first option won't be correct. The second option is if R3 is reflexive or not. Okay. So first of all, let's see if R3 is reflexive or not.
Shantanu,
Reflexive.
you are not audible.
Okay.
So
Hello.
your mic's connected.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Abhinav, are you being able to hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So now we see whether or not R3 is reflexive. So first of all, we will say in R3 we have got let's say A comma C. So basically R3 would be reflexive only when we would take the same month. We would take a pair of the same month, like January comma January, and that would satisfy the conditions of R3. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, let's see. We take January comma January. Okay. At first point, we would say, "Arey, it must be reflexive because we can always take January comma January comma January." Means B can be January, A and C can be January. Okay. So in that case, January, which is B, would share the same last four letters as of January because it is the same element, and at the same time, it would have the same number of days as of January, which is C.
Yeah.
Right. So it is kind of like straight away answer. Even I was going to answer it, but then you see that what if I take B to be any other month?
Mm-hmm.
Straight away our complete thing goes wrong. Like
Yeah, goes wrong.
with A, we can see a B can exist with satisfied with R1, like has the same last four letters, February. And at the same time, we expect February and January to share the same number of days, but that's not. That
Yeah.
is not
That,
true,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That is not
So
true.
immediately it is not reflexive, and so second option is also not correct.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not R3 is transitive.
Transitive
Now,
or not.
this transitive condition is really complicated for such sets. So we have to construct it with very much preciseness or whatever you say. For that, I'm going to take a live example. Let's say, let us take an example from which has been provided by them only. So first of all, let's recall that transitive relations are those in which if A comma B exists in the relation and if B comma C also exists in the relation, then A comma C must exist in the relation. Okay. So, but when we start thinking about this, like, okay, so I need to have one month, one such month whose name shares the same number of letters as another month B, and it has the same number of days as another month C. Then in that case, A comma C would exist in R3. Okay. Now we have to do the same with say D comma F also. Means in this time we have to take another set, another order pair D comma F. Let's take it. So that means the month D should means for this month D we should have another month E such that both of them share the same last four letters, right? And at the same time that E and F should have the same number of days as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when we think about this practically, can this actually happen? Like, even if we don't need to go through all the month names, just think, can this happen? Means like we have A comma C also and C comma E also in the same relation.
Nope.
It does not need to be true, right?
Yeah.
So even if in that case we should not go from this whatever we assume to be true, because not these questions are not always intuitive. So I would suggest you to practically or say use your pen and paper to solve these questions, but for the sake of time I would say it is not transitive. I have tested it, so we remain with the option none of the above to be correct. Okay, because R3 is neither symmetric nor reflexive nor transitive. Okay. Does everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay, let's proceed to the second part of this question. What is the cardinality of R3? Again R3. So for taking out calculating the cardinality of R3, what I did was, first of all, uh, construct a set, not a set, basically a collection, so that you can refer to it. You don't need to show it to teacher whatever you are doing. You just need to write the answer. So for that, I will take a collection. I will make a collection, and in that I will place all those month names which would have the same number, same last four letters. Okay. And also remember, the months which have the same last four letters should be clubbed together. For example, what I am doing is, for February I am taking the letter F, for January I am taking the letter J. You can take whatever letters you want, and I would write FJ together, then JJ together. Means in the first collection I am saying February and January have the same last four letters, January and January also have the same last four letters. So this is how I am writing. Okay. Is everybody getting that? If you have any doubts, you can just tell me. So for the first pair, I have taken FJ and JJ. Okay, why I have not taken FF and JF? The simple answer to this is that if I would have taken JF, that would have been a waste of time. We see in this case A would be J, January, B would be February, because that is what I'm trying to do here. And February has, means there is no such month which shares the same number of days as February, right? Only February has 28 or 29 days. So of course I cannot take B to be February.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely I'll not take JF or FF. So I'll only take FJ and JJ. Okay. Now this was for January and February. Now there exist three more months which share the same last four letters:
Mm-hmm.
September, November, December. So I can represent them with S, N, and D. Okay.
Mhm.
So which pairs can I consider making? A comma B, which they will be S means September, September. This is for A comma B. Okay. Always remember that. Then SN, September, November, and SD, September, December.
Mm-hmm.
The same goes for November, NN, NS, and ND. And the same goes for December, DS, DN, and DD. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see in the first set, means A comma B, the collection of A comma B, I have made FJ, JJ, and 9, which 9 of those which I have made at the last. So I have total 11 here, right?
Right.
Okay. Now in the second set, second collection, I'll make that of B comma C. Means I have to take the last elements, the last letters from the collection I have made in the first collection that I have made. Okay. So the last letter I'll take, and along with that last letter, I'll try to see if there exists other months which have the same number of days. So there can only be two such classes. Either the months have 31 days or the months have 30 days, right?
Right.
So in the first collection, let's say we have two elements which are ending with J, means in which B is January. So 2. There, and December also has 31 days, I guess. Yes.
Yeah. 31 days.
Okay, so January and December are the only such letters which share which share some last four letters similar, like January has February and December has November and September. So these are the only 2 months which occur in the first collection also, and they have the same number of days which we are going to just construct. Okay, so like January I've got, and December at the last, which are those SD, means September December is 1, November and December, and December. Now we have 5 of these which can have 31 days. Okay, so in the next collection that I'm going to make, I'll take all those months which can have 31 days. Okay, so what are those months? Let's start from the beginning. January, right? February not, March, April not, May, June not, July, August, September not, October, November not, and December, right?
Right.
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 such months which have 31 days. That means from the first collection, I can take 5 of these elements, which are FJ, JJ, SD, ND, and DD, and club them with 7 of the second collection. Okay, so the second collection is B comma C. I must remind you, means the second collection not. The second collection is only of C, and I am going to pair them with A comma B. Okay.
Okay.
I think it might be a bit confusing because
Yeah.
this is really a confusing question. Anyway, so basically what I'm doing is, in one collection I'm writing down on all A comma B, and in the second collection I'm writing down all C, such that in this collection, in the second collection, I have made two classes. The first class has 31 days and the second class has 30 days, right? So let us club the first class of the second collection along with these 5 elements in which there is January or December at the last. So 5 multiplied by 7, what do we get? 35. Okay, so there can be 35 elements in R3 such that A comma B have the same last 4 letters, that is UARY, UARY or EMBER,
Yeah.
and
MB.
they have, and B comma C has 31 days. So such elements are 35. Now the second that set I am going to pick from A comma B1 collection, that the first collection is the elements which end with such a month, means where B is such a month which has 30 days, and these are SS, September September, November November, December September, September November, November September, and November November. You need to focus on the last months, right? September, November,
Yeah.
and September and November only, because these have 30 days. So these are 6 in count, and now I will club these 6 with those which have, I'll say, 30 months, because September and November have only 30 months. Okay.
Yeah.
So which are those months? February not, March not, April, May not, June, July not, August not, September, October not, November, right?
Yeah.
So I have here September, September, November, so I have 4 and this 6. So 6 into 4 is 24, right? So basically this calculation is taking much long time. The simple thing is try to find such A comma B and B comma C, and finally you will get the answer to be 85. Okay.
Yeah.
The cardinality of R3 is 85. Now the 13th question is, for a college event, 30 student volunteers were given ID numbers from 1 to 30 such that each student gets a unique number. The students with ID numbers from 1 to 10 are in team 1. Okay, so team 1 has ID numbers 1 to 30. I have written it. Then the students with ID numbers 11 to 20 are in team 2. T2
Okay.
means team 2 has 11 to 20. And the team 3, take for a very important note on this team 3. It might yes, it might completely ruin your answers. So the students whose roll numbers are multiples of 3. Okay, that means those students which are already in team 1 or team 2 can also be in team 3.
Yeah.
So T3 is basically multiples of 3.
Yeah.
Now we have to answer the following questions. We have to also consider this Venn diagram and choose the correct option. So first of all, let's study the Venn diagram. We see A and B. So remember, we have not been given, we have not been specified these teams A, B, and C, whatever they are. We have to find them. We have only been told team 1, 2, and 3. So we have to map 1, 2, and 3 with A, B, and C, whichever matches.
Yeah.
Okay. So we see A and B don't intersect. Okay. So the only two such teams which can do this are
Is
team number
team
1
one
and team
and
number
two.
2,
Right.
because they have roll numbers 1 to 10 and 11 to 20, which is not intersecting, right?
Yeah.
So yes, A and B must be team number 1 and 2. I can write it A1 and B2. As of now, I am assuming A to be 1 and B to be 2 because that won't matter much. And the next thing we see is team number C has some elements falling in A, some elements falling in B, but some elements which are not falling in either of A and B. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let us proceed to the options. The first option says C, B, and A can represent team 1, 2, and 3 respectively, which is wrong because we just saw teams 1 and 2 are A and B.
Yeah.
So first option is wrong. Second option says A, B, and C can represent team 1, 2, and 3. Yes, it can be. We just saw that out of A and B, we will get one team to be 1 and one team to be 2. And the C team, team C would be team 3. So yes, it is correct. Now, roll number 15 has been assigned 2 jobs and is in both B and C. Okay, that means roll number 15 must be must lie between 11 and 20, and roll number 15 must be a multiple of 3.
3.
Is it?
That is true.
Yes, it is. That is true. So option number 3 is also correct. Now, roll number 25 is not in A union B union C. That means 25 should neither be lying between 1 and 10, nor be lying between 11 and 20, nor be a multiple of
Left
3.
3. Yeah.
And is it true? Yes, it is
Yeah.
true. 25 is not a multiple of 3, and it is greater than 20, not lying between 11 and 20 or 1 and 10. So yes, option number 4 is also correct. Roll number 10 is in both A and C. It is wrong because 10 is not a multiple of 3.
Yeah.
And cardinality of C is 20. It is also wrong because you can find out
Only
from
10
1 to
elements.
30, we can only get 10 elements. Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, only second, third, and fourth options are correct. So we are finally done with our this complete assignment. And
Yeah.
if you have any doubts, you can ask.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'll submit this assignment. Okay, guys. Congratulations. If you are with us, he scored 20. So for now,
Okay, and
yeah,
I
congrats.
would like to apologize to everybody who found it boring because I was speaking like unstoppably, continuously.
No, it was okay.